So good evening, everybody. My name is Angie Hall, and I'm a member of the SFU Alumni Association Board of Directors. We're a team of 15 alumni volunteers who work to improve the benefits and services that SFU offers to alumni, and a group of us also helped organize tonight's event. So first of all, I'd like to thank all of you so much for being here. I'm kind of amazed that on a game night we got this many people out. We didn't know it was going to be a game night when we originally booked the venue, so I'm pleased to see that you're putting your career ahead of your love of hockey. So we'd like to begin tonight by acknowledging a few special guests we have in the audience. From the SFU Alumni Association Board of Directors, we have Jasmine Cumberland, Pam Hernandez, Raphael Tachi, Sean Burke. We have our Director of Major Gifts and Institutional Initiatives, Rochelle Diablo. And from the Alumni Relations Office, we have the Director of Alumni Relations and Executive Director of the Alumni Association, John Grant, the Alumni Officer for Events and Programs, Lisa Young, the Alumni Officer for Marketing and Programs, Allison Lambert, the Events Assistant, Miyuki Moizumi, Communications Assistant, Bethany Cheng, the Program Assistant, Chika Buston. And we'd also like to recognize our Alumni Association affinity partner, the Dreyer Group Mortgages, and we have Meryl Dreyer with us here tonight. Also, we'd like to thank our event sponsor, Tube Together, and we have Selena Sue and Will Liao here from Tube Together. We'd like to draw your attention to the Dreyer Group Mortgage booth. Dreyer Group is one of our Alumni Association partners, and they provide SFU alumni and friends with free appraisals, legal fee credit, and even more when brokering a mortgage. In addition, when you use their services, the Alumni Association benefits from every mortgage that's funded through their services, and there's no additional cost to you. In particular, they work quite a bit with self-employed entrepreneurs to help identify ways that a mortgage can be funded. And tonight they're offering an Apple TV as a door prize. So please be sure to put your name in the draw before you leave, which is just over there. We also have a booth of information from SFU's Venture Connection and Radius SFU Entrepreneurship and Incubator programs, which both offer services to SFU and alumni. Please be sure to check out their information. On my right-hand side, you'll also notice the TV monitor. Tonight we're working with an SFU student entrepreneur group, Tube Together, who have generously offered their services to help provide some interactivity during tonight's event. So the platform is similar to a Twitter wall, but it allows you to anonymously submit your comments and questions through the use of a text message. If you dial 604-256-8113, and your comment will appear on the screen, as long as it's PG-13 and related to the conversation. So tonight, it is my extreme pleasure to introduce the moderator for the event, Miss Jill Earthy. SFU is so fortunate that Jill has elected to spend some of her volunteer time to serve on the university's Board of Governors. She's also the perfect fit for tonight's event, as she's the regional director for the BC and Yukon of Futurepreneur Canada, which is a national nonprofit organization that provides loans and mentorship to startup entrepreneurs between the ages of 18 and 39. Previously, Jill was the CEO of the Forum for Women Entrepreneurs, and she successfully built 2 companies that she grew nationally and then sold. As if she's not busy enough, aside from her SFU volunteer commitments, Jill also serves on the board of the Women's Enterprise Center and is the co-chair of the Web Alliance, a collective of over 25 women's business networks. Jill has been recognized as a Business in Vancouver Top 40 Under 40, Top 100 by the International Alliance for Women, and was a finalist for the YWCA's Women of Distinction Awards in the nonprofit sector. Please join me in welcoming Jill.
Thanks so much, Angie. I really appreciate the introduction. So it's so great to be here tonight, and actually it's a really good thing because my husband's a Calgarian, so it's probably better that I'm here. It could get a bit messy at home. So to begin, we have a really interesting representatives here for our panel tonight. We're going to have a really diverse conversation, and it's going to be very interactive and engaging, and I'm really curious to see how this Tube Together is going to work, so we're going to learn together. So to begin with, I'm going to just quickly introduce our panelists, and then we're going to they'll provide a few minutes of overview. They're going to come up here one by one, and two. And then we'll have some interactive dialogue, as I mentioned. And some people have submitted questions in advance, so we'll make sure that those are all included as well. So I'm going to ask Kevin Cruz to come up first. And what I did is I asked each panelist in advance, what's one thing that we may not know about you? Because you've all read their bios. So what's one interesting thing? And so I learned a lot about them in this little experiment. So Kevin is a vocal jazz musician. So pretty cool. He's not going to perform for us tonight. But one thing he learned from that experience is that because he's a musician, because he's a performer, all of those skills that he gained through that experience have really helped him with the pitching. Now as an entrepreneur, now that he's come over, we don't say the dark side, but the bright side. Now that you have that sort of confidence and that poise, and you've learned to apply that in your pitching. So I'm going to ask Kevin to come up. And then, of course, we also have Christina Bucholtz here, who we'll introduce in a moment, and Kevin Shaw and Sean Burke, who are going to talk about Whiskey Wisemen. So we'll get started. So without further ado, we'll have Kevin Cruz to the stage. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to thank all the organizers for inviting me to give a talk and give my take on all the things we'll be discussing today. It's a huge honor to represent the SFU undergraduate students. I believe I'm the only one here and the youngest among these panelists. So just speaking on behalf of these amazing young entrepreneurs coming up and coming from SFU, I'm glad to be their representative tonight. So let's get started. My origins, my beginnings as an entrepreneur started right in the city of Surrey. It's where I'm from. I was pretty much raised there. And what's interesting about the city of Surrey is it is this growing hub of innovation with many young entrepreneurs and tech startups just coming up and really shaking up the scene here in the lower mainland of British Columbia. So at the center of this hub, what in my personal opinion is the university here at SFU, at the Surrey campus. There's some amazing programs that have helped shape young entrepreneurs like myself and give rise and give them opportunities to really step onto the scene and give them the necessary skills to get to where they need to go as entrepreneurs and to become successful in the long run. So again, I just wanted to include some pictures from class presentations, going out into industry events, things like that, and just show you guys what amazing young entrepreneurs are coming up from the university. So throughout my growth as an entrepreneur here at SFU, I've had the pleasure and honor of working with various mentors and professors who've helped me develop skills, people like the mentors in residence from Venture Connection, as well as professors. And specifically just wanted to give a shout out to Venture Connection, an amazing program that I got involved with in my second year at university. And from there, I've worked with various mentors, helped me hone my skills, whether it regards to enabling my team or going to pitching competitions, and really developing that solid foundation to becoming an entrepreneur. So let's talk about AuraSense. AuraSense is a mobile device company that my team and myself started in about 2 years ago. We're developing the world's first app-enabled scent diffuser that enables users to create and control fragrances in real time. So using a mobile application that communicates with this diffuser in real time, users can mix essential oils, essentially creating their own recipes that will diffuse into their home. It's kind of like an Internet of Things, but we like to joke around and say that it's the Internet of Smells. So one of the things that I learned as an entrepreneur was exploring opportunities. A lot of people have come up to me and they've said, Kevin, where do you come up with these crazy ideas, or how do you get that right idea? And I always tell people that it comes from talking to people. The best ideas come from identifying problems, niches, pain points in markets that the average person won't necessarily see, and identifying opportunities where people would be able to, to flourish and things like that, develop products that solve these pain points. So what we discovered is we spoke to several homeowners, several hundreds of homeowners actually, a sample size of close to 300 people over the past year or so of homeowners. So we discovered this growing, emerging trend of Internet of Things, products that are meant to design the ambience, to enhance the ambience of the home, whether it is app-controlled light bulbs, sound systems, and we found this interesting niche within the market of fragrances. What we discovered was that there's nothing really quite offering that level of sophistication with regards to scent technology. So I wanted to include this quote because it really goes back to what I said about going and talking to your customers. It has become an absolute foundation for us as a company, as a startup, to talk to our customers, to listen to them. So there's this one homeowner that we've had the pleasure of working with who's helped us develop this product, identify what the pain points in the market are, and identify how we can best develop this product. Her name's Olivia. So I just wanted to include that quote right there. She's a person similar to a lot of the people in the audience today. She comes home from a long, hard, stressful day at work, and all she wants to do is to relax. And that's what we're offering her a new avenue to do that at OurSense. So like I said, this is a little shot of our mobile application that communicates with the device. Users are able to take these recipes that they create, these personalized recipes, and actually share them on a social platform, which is another key feature that we're developing in our project moving forward. So again, scent creation, using a sliding bar, users are able to control how much of each oil is diffused into the central reservoir of the device, thereby creating their own recipe, their own mixture of these oils. Another key component is how are we going to be getting these oils? So using the little, how are they going to be acquiring these little cartridges? So what we're looking to develop is something similar to an iTunes-like system, but for fragrances. Users are able to purchase these fragrance vials, these cartridges, through our mobile application's online marketplace. Again, going back to listening to our customer, embracing changes, doing a lot of pivots. Many of you are familiar with the concepts discussed in Lean Startup, and we have gone through many pivots. At the heart of it, OurSense at the very beginning was to be a home automation system, just a general one that would control lighting, blinds, heaters, things like that. And we essentially did a zoom-in pivot and focused on this interesting niche that no one really is targeting or extracting value from or providing value from at this point. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk today. If you'd like to see this personally firsthand, contact me. I will be right here at the event, and I could give you my contact information. I'd be more than happy to send you the link so you can play around with it and give, maybe potentially give us feedback. You know, we're always open to advice or feedback from potential users. Things like usability testing, and just wanted to put that opportunity out there. So thank you so much.
So one of the key characteristics of an entrepreneur is adaptability and being able to sort of go with the flow. So good for you. That was really fantastic. I really appreciate that. I have one of the best jobs in the world, and I didn't even mention that, is that I get to help young entrepreneurs start their businesses all the time. So it's just so inspiring to hear stories like Kevin's. So thank you very much. I just want to quickly ask, who here in the room is an entrepreneur at the moment? A few. And who wants to be one? Okay, publicly declaring that. That's good. So there's lots of great support in this room, so it's wonderful. So I'd now like to ask Christina to come up, of the People's Foundation of Sierra Leone. The neat thing about Christina is she speaks 4 languages. 2 of those are from Sierra Leone, and she is one of 10,000 people in the world that can speak it. So it's going into extinction, and that's pretty amazing that she's picked that up. She's going to carry it on, so you have to now teach people and carry it forward. So without further ado, please welcome Christina.
Good evening. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. So I'm going to start by talking about a word that I think unites all entrepreneurs, regardless of what we're doing, and that word is potential. So I think the thing entrepreneurs have in common, whether we are nonprofit entrepreneurs or business entrepreneurs, is that we see potential in a situation and we try to create something more out of that potential. So having said that, how many of you have heard of Sierra Leone? Oh, impressive. Usually it's like 5, so that was pretty good. So Sierra Leone is a pretty small country in West Africa. It's about 7 million people. And usually the word people think of when they think of Sierra Leone is not potential. So usually the word people think of is blood diamonds or civil war or currently Ebola. So there's a lot of negative words thrown around when people talk about Sierra Leone. So I am really inspired by my work in Sierra Leone because the only thing I get out of Sierra Leone is potential. And not only potential to become a better entrepreneur, but also potential to become a better person and to create more impact in the lives of people I see every day. So this picture was actually from my first trip to Sierra Leone, which was in 2008. And I had the opportunity to go with a school from Canada and to work at a local school for about 3 weeks. And that was when I actually realized that I wanted to become a teacher. Prior to that, I had never felt passionate about that. But seeing the impact of education on children's lives and just how much children genuinely want education was something entirely new for me. Having gone to school in Canada where basically everybody dreads going to school from the time they're in grade 5 or 6, it was really wonderful to see kids singing and dancing and going to school and enjoying every moment of it because it was such a rare opportunity. So after traveling to Sierra Leone in 2008, I came back and I drastically changed my life plans, and I went from a psychology degree in university to an international relations degree. And I used to be a horseback rider, and I sold my horses, and I decided to become a teacher. So the next year, I was offered the opportunity to go back as part of my international development placement and volunteer with a local organization, which was phenomenal. And it was a local nonprofit. So they accepted me for a 6-month placement, and the first day I got there, when they picked me up at the airport, they said, "Yeah, it's so great that you're here. We have no idea what we're going to do with you." Because they'd never had anyone who wasn't Sierra Leonean work with their organization before. So we didn't speak the same language. I had no idea what their programs were about. It was an organization that was, at that time, 25 males and 1 female, and I was the 1 female. So it was a really interesting dynamic to be in. But out of that, something amazing actually got created. So what ended up happening was I started their youth programs for them. They were an agricultural organization, so they worked in communities and they gave agricultural loans, and they worked primarily with people over the age of 40. So they said, something we've always wanted to do is start youth programs, but we've never had someone who's a youth. So you're a youth, you should start some youth programs. So I was able to actually go into about 35 different villages the first year and learn the local language and start connecting with youth on a deeper level and start talking to them about issues that they faced in their day-to-day life. And something that kept coming up over and over and over again was education. So it was really hard for me as I was a first-year university student, and for me, I had always been told that I could do whatever I wanted to do. I could be a teacher, I could be a pilot, I could be a doctor, I could be a nurse, I could be a president, I could be a prime minister. There was never any limitation on what I could do through education. And I met these amazing young people who had exactly the same dreams as me, if not bigger and more phenomenal, but there were limitations on what they could do just because of their economic situation. So that was when I started to get the idea for the People's Foundation. So this is a photo from our first scholarship ceremony in 2010. So basically I volunteered in 2009, and then when I came back in 2009, I decided I would raise money to send some students to school. And at that point, that was all I wanted to do. I wanted to raise money, go over there, hand over the money, and the students would go to school. As many of you know who are entrepreneurs, part of starting an idea is being able to change your idea and listen to other people's opinions about your idea. So I went over there with $4,000 in my pocket, and I was really excited, and I sat down with the chief and the village elders, and I said, I really want to send 4 youth to school. And they said, okay, that's great, you can't do that. So at that point, I was a little shell-shocked, but what they meant by you can't do that is that there's a huge culture of dependency in Sierra Leone, created from so many nonprofit organizations and so many aid organizations just going in and giving money to solve a problem instead of actually working with people to fix the problem from the inside out. So instead of just giving away the money, what we ended up doing was we formed a new nonprofit organization called the People's Foundation, and it was basically a youth empowerment organization. So we worked with, in the beginning, about 100 youth in different villages, and we talked to them about HIV/AIDS sensitization, we talked to them about teenage pregnancy, we talked to them about healthy relationships, we talked about environmental problems. Anything you can think of that was on their list of things they wanted to talk about, we gave them a venue and a space to talk about those things. So through that organization, we were able to create potential leaders who were doing amazing things in their community. And then those potential leaders were the ones who were able to apply for the scholarships. So it basically works like how a scholarship program works here, is that you're granted a scholarship based on merit. So the students are granted their scholarships based on need and based on their academic potential, but also based on what are they doing to transform their community? How have they been a leader in their community? What have they done that's actually changed the face of the people around them? So in 2010, we gave out 4 scholarships to emerging young leaders. And if you fast forward now to 2015, we've given out almost 18 scholarships, and 3 of our students have graduated from university and started careers in Sierra Leone. So out of those 18 scholarships, we also have over 500 youth that we work with throughout the country who are in our programs. So what started as really a crazy idea on my part has actually transformed into something really powerful. And our youth now have the ability to go into different villages and to speak to people in their local language about problems that they're facing that they've traditionally never been able to talk about. So I'm using this quote because it's something that inspires me and is really powerful, and it's from Nelson Mandela. And he says, "Education is the most powerful tool you can use to change the world." And that's very true in our organization because 99% of the things we talk about with young people, we wouldn't be allowed to talk about if we weren't providing education. So sex education, teenage pregnancy, healthy relationships, all those things that are thrown around really commonly in Canada, in Sierra Leone is never an issue that you can talk about. So before we started our organization, the first year I was there were 7 girls between the ages of 14 and 16 in the village I was working in who got pregnant, didn't know how they got pregnant, and didn't even know what sex was when they got pregnant. So if you can imagine that sort of setting and then going to aunts or uncles and saying, "We want to talk to your kids about sex," it's not something that you're able to do. But because we provide education, we've been given wide open doors in over 8 communities to talk to youth about these things. And we've impacted so far over 8,000 people through high school sensitizations about teenage pregnancy and safe sex. So I think one really powerful thing about what we do is that we're able to dive into these issues in a way that nobody else really is because of the education that we're offering. So this was just last year, and this is one of our scholarship students actually addressing a Muslim school about teenage pregnancy and HIV/AIDS. So if you can imagine, there's about 2,000 kids at that school. They've never been taught sex education or anything like that. From this presentation, they then all go out and talk to their friends and their communities and their families. So it really has a ripple effect in the way it opens up the conversation and allows people to talk about it. Okay, so lastly, I'm just going to end with 2 terms that I find really important as an entrepreneur. So a lot of you raised your hand when you said you wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I'm sure when you think of starting up a business or starting up a charity or a nonprofit, it's very beautiful, the idea of it. And it seems like you'll be wearing business suits and high heels and you'll be attending all these great meetings and people will be tweeting about you, which sometimes maybe happens. So that's what I call attractive entrepreneurship. And I think that's the goal that a lot of people have and what you think it's going to end up being. And then this is effective entrepreneurship. So I'm not sure if you can see this that well, but this is me on the right. And I was about up to my neck in mud. This was after a 16-hour day in one of our swamps. So another project that we do is we raise funds locally in Sierra Leone. So we have about 4 community farms that we have started. And we go into those farms and we plant anything from rice to groundnuts to peppers. And all the profit that we raise from those farms goes directly back into our programs. So the main point I'm trying to make there is not that you have to start a farm, but that effective entrepreneurship often means you have to get dirty, you have to get your hands dirty, you have to get involved in the situation, you have to listen to the people that you're working with, and you have to be constantly shaping your idea and allowing it not to just be your idea, but allowing it to be everybody's idea. So you have to reach a point where you're willing to do whatever it takes to make your idea get off the ground. And for me, whatever it took was listening to other people and not being so focused on what I wanted to start that I wasn't willing to change it and adapt it to make it something sustainable. So this is from 2010, and then this is from 2014, and this is just one of our branches. We have 7, so obviously you can see how much it's grown, which is really amazing. Finish? Yeah, so this was our last high school sensitization that we did back in 2015. So yeah, I think what I would like to end with is just that no matter what your idea is and no matter what creation you want to come up with, the most important thing is to work with the people around you and to always realize that nobody is an island. You can't do anything on your own. If I had gone into Sierra Leone and just given away $4,000, nothing would have been changed in the lives of any of these youth. But because I was actually able to realize, oh, do you know what? This idea isn't that great. I need to sit down and talk to people who have way more experience and people who know this culture and people who actually understand what the factors are here. Because I was able to do that, now the youth that I work with have been able to transform this idea into something so much bigger and something that has so much potential to impact people and to positively change their lives for the better. Thank you.
Wow, Christina, thank you so much for sharing that. That's incredibly impactful. And certainly passion is one of the characteristics that comes to mind for me too. And I love that term, attractive entrepreneurship. I often use the term, the perceived flexibility you get as an entrepreneur, right? People come, they have this, it's the same sort of concept. And I say, yeah, you have the flexibility to work 24/7, right? For half the pay. I think that's the rule. But shifting gears, thank you again. Next up, we have Kevin Shaw and Sean Burke from Whisky, Wisemen. And two interesting facts about them. We've got Kevin here, who will head on up, but he is right now training the Olympic distance for a triathlon, but he also has a vice, and that's sour candy. So a little bit of a counterbalance there. And then Sean is a new entrepreneur as of April 1st, so just a few weeks ago. He left his swanky job at PwC and has moved to start a company called Silver Maple Ventures, which is a startup designed to help other startups raise capital and propel their business ideas. So those of you in the room who are thinking about taking that leap, come talk to Sean after too. So I'd love to welcome Kevin and Sean up. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jill. Is this one on? Perfect. I don't like standing behind the lectern. So yes, my name is Sean Burke, and first of all, yeah, I don't have such an interesting fact as the other two, but the reason why I did want to talk a little bit, just briefly mention that I did take the leap from PwC and now starting my own business with a couple of partners, is the fact that this is the perfect forum and potentially there could be other entrepreneurs or future entrepreneurs. So. With that, my kind of interesting fact, we're talking about attractive entrepreneurship. Well, the one thing that I can tell you is that the first week when I came back from Silver Maple, our company, I walked in the door, I was super excited. I started talking to my girlfriend, letting her know everything we were doing that day. I told her, oh, it was really cool. We got to create these new titles, the email signatures, super cool, right? I got CFO in my title, but then she's like, oh, honey, go check. There's a mail for you at the door. So I go over, I check the mail, and I open it up, and I look at it, and it's like, Dear Mr. Broke. And I'm like, is this a joke? Like, my last name's Burke, Dear Mr. Broke, that was a joke. But anyways, yeah, we're here to talk about the Whisky Wisemen tonight. So Kevin and I, why is there two of us up here talking about it? I think the reason for that is we've been working together for a long time. So we go back to high school where we played on the same basketball team and did a whole bunch of different projects together. And even throughout our career up at SFU, we were always kind of assisting one another in different projects, did the same classes, and started different kind of entrepreneurial ideas and events way back at SFU. And even most recently is applying for the Amazing Race Canada, which I'm not putting a plug in for, but we do have a video out there as well too. So that's why the two of us are up here talking about it. I'll let Kevin talk about the Whisky Wisemen and what we do right now, and then I'll come back and talk about some of our struggles.
Yeah, struggles. Lots of those. Yeah, thanks for having us, everybody. And fantastic stories, Kevin and Christina. We'll be maybe a little bit more brief on the Whisky Wisemen side because we really like questions, and we encourage everybody to ask us those questions as we sit down for the panel. But what is the Whisky Wisemen? Well, this is our logo. We are an inspiring community of aspiring change makers looking to do good and be better every day. So that sounds really great, and it is something that's our vision actually. And it's something that we're aspiring towards every single day. And one of the things that Kevin touched on was that often entrepreneurship can come from a pain point or a need. And that's kind of something that we saw when we started the Whisky Wisemen. And it was actually quite a selfish need, to be honest. That selfish need was that we weren't seeing each other enough. Despite what Sean just said, we weren't seeing each other enough.
It's true.
And on top of that, kind of our 1 degree of separation friends. So for those of you who have graduated in particular, you'll find that as you get older, it's not as though those friends aren't as good of friends, but you just don't have enough time in the day to see them and share a drink with them maybe. And so our first meeting, we went to the Salty Tongue in Gastown, and we had a cocktail. I think there were 6 of us. And we just said, you know what, we should make this a regular monthly occurrence. We're going to be here every month. Anybody that cares to join should come along. And I like to say that I remember saying that, but to be honest, maybe we had a few too many cocktails that evening. But we did make it a monthly occurrence, and it's called the Third Thursday. So what we decided to do was we said, hey, if we're going to bring out a crowd, we should be receiving some type of benefit. But that quickly changed. The Whiskey Wisemen is a registered BC not-for-profit. And what we do is we take 10% of our Third Thursdays, monthly events, and we give it to a local Vancouver charity. And the need there is a sense of community. Community is something that I think, at least personally, I have felt, and I know Sean has felt, and the rest of our board members, and it's something that I'm sure everyone here can relate to, in that Vancouver is often coined an unsocial city or difficult to make friends, right? And so we want to make this community involvement by giving back. That's kind of our do good, be better. And then the community that we're curating is going to kind of help each other grow throughout the city. And that's served very, very well. We are now, we have 4 different chapters. We give all funds raised today to Power to Be, which is a Vancouver-based charity. And in all our other chapters, we actually give to local charities in those different cities. So I'll let Sean kind of take it away in terms of how we're trying to scale the Whiskey Wiseman.
Yeah, so that's kind of it's an interesting point, because this is probably the biggest thing right now that we're focused on, and it's probably one of the biggest challenges that we're faced with moving forward. So Kevin mentioned we have 4 operational Whiskey Wisemans, and that's New York, Calgary, Victoria, and Vancouver. Recently, we've had a significant interest, and that's been actually beyond Canada, the borders of Canada. So we've had interest in London, Amsterdam, a couple of cities in the US. And then I guess just recently today, I got a message. Actually, it seems like it's an everyday occurrence now. I'm getting a message from this guy, and it's like, oh, another one. And this today was from El Salvador. So it's definitely a model that we're struggling with in terms of keeping up, and how do we kind of take that model, apply it in Vancouver, and now scale it. So one of the things we've really done is we've put together a package, and that package is a bunch of protocols and procedures, and kind of setting the expectations as to this is what you need to have before you even consider starting a chapter. So right away, that's kind of ruling out the people who might just be interested but don't really want to commit and have that significant, time commitment for it. So then beyond that, what we do is we kind of set up a bunch of different meetings. All this is done online, obviously. And from there, what we're seeing is that now you find the people who are really interested that want to come and buy into the model. And something that's really great about the actual expansion is that, we're talking about investing in Sierra Leone, right, with Christina's model. And with the model that we're trying to establish now is, how do we empower people within their local communities to step up and help others in their local community? So using a model that we've built and developed here in Vancouver, that's kind of the sustainable model that we're hoping to grow and basically facilitate in all these other places around the world. Now, it's not easy. It's something that, like I said, it's a challenge we're faced with every day, every board meeting that we have, and it's an ongoing process. So I think what we think it's going to look like tomorrow, it's definitely going to be different in another 10 or 15 days, and it's something that's just the nature of where we're at. So right there, I'll kind of stop it, and I think we'll turn it back to Jill and go into some questions.
Yeah.
Christina and Kevin, come on up. And we'll put these entrepreneurs on the hot seat. So thank you all for sharing your story, and that was great to hear a bit more about Whiskey Wiseman and the model. You've got a great opportunity ahead of you. So we had a couple questions submitted in advance, so I think we'll start there. And you guys keep percolating your questions. You either can be brave and stand up and say them after, or you can text them to tube together. So the first question is, and we'll just kind of balance it off, so maybe we need one of those buttons, right? So how did you kind of make the leap from planning? I mean, many of us in the room, I'm assuming, and I certainly do, you have ideas. You have all of these ideas, concepts, and you kind of go down a path and you plan, and then you abort, you pivot, whatever, or you just stick with those ideas, and they never turn into anything. So how do you kind of, at what point did each of you sort of decide, okay, I've got to move this forward from where it is? So when did you take the leap from planning into actual execution and launch?
Go for it.
I guess the big thing with AuraSense, at least my personal experiences with that, is one of the big things that we focused on was really talking to people. And when we, it was almost like trusting our gut feeling in a sense, where if we recognized this opportunity and we felt that we could feel it, deep down inside, that there's this huge demand, and that's where we just started executing. That's where we started really, iterating different ideas, talking to people, and determining what key, product features would provide the most value for them.
Great. Okay, anyone else? Christina, do you want to jump in? When did you?
I would say mine was more the other way around. We were in motion first and then we planned.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes that works too, is that you just take an action and then after the action you realize, okay, I actually need to pivot this way, or I actually need to change this. So I think sometimes the most important thing is just to start doing something.
Right. And you guys, it came out of a need you identified?
Yeah, I'll say the one thing that, I like to use sports analogies, but you miss 99%, or you miss 100% of the shots you never take. And jumping into the water can sometimes be the most challenging and intimidating thing, but unless you actually put yourself out there, you're never going to see the results you want to see. So for us, it was, we have this opportunity here. We didn't think it would grow into what it's become today, but if we didn't try, if we didn't take that leap, then we never would obviously be in the position we're at today.
Exactly. So building on that, were there specific resources or mentors or people that you sort of not took advantage of, but reached out to and you really utilized that helped you? Like, are there one or two key pieces in there that you could help share as people are going down that path?
I think it's interesting having a group of entrepreneurs in a room like this, or people that are aspiring or wondering how things come together. I wouldn't say that I necessarily reflect on one or two individuals, but I will say, quote again, Sean and I, we use a lot of sports analogies and quotes, you'll find. But one of the things that really scares me is what's called a bean brother. Could have been, should have been, would have been. And I think that I kind of take that mentality when approaching a problem and just say, hey, what is the best logical step for me at this exact moment? Is it to reach out to a mentor? Is it to reach to a best friend and say, hey, I have this really cool idea, and the craziest part about it is I don't know if I can actually execute how excellent it is. Remember that conversation?
Yeah, I do.
And I don't know what the answer is, but I know that if I apply that fear, could have been, should have been, would have been, don't want to be a bean brother, that I'll come up with a good enough answer for me.
Great.
So.
Excellent.
If I can actually add on a point to that, the woulda, coulda, shoulda kind of mindset. There was this amazing piece of advice that I received from this gentleman named Mike Volker. He's head of the New Ventures BC competition here in Vancouver, and he told me that every second that you don't spend focusing on your startup, on developing your idea, on executing it, is another second that your potential competitor or your competitors are spending on their products. It's a very extreme mindset, but it's something you should really be mindful of.
Yeah, great point. Christina, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think for me the most helpful people would have been my professors, because it was really good to bounce ideas off of them, and again, the local community. So whatever community you're working in, it's so essential to make contacts with people in that community and actually ask them what they want instead of what you want, but actually ask, what is your need and what can I do to help you meet that need, instead of focusing on what I want to bring to the table.
Yeah, great points. And I just wanted to mention too that in BC, and particularly in Vancouver, we're so fortunate because there are so many resources available for entrepreneurs. There's a whole tech community, there's a whole social enterprise community. You look at, we have Radius here at SFU, Venture Connect, there's Small Business BC, there's mentorshipbc.com for all the mentorship programs for entrepreneurs. So there are a ton of resources. And I know sometimes as entrepreneurs that's a bit overwhelming, because how do you navigate and which resources are right for me right now? Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So by just starting to ask ask those questions, people will help to guide you to the right resource.
Yeah, just one thing I'll add to that is that the government also has a concierge service put on through the NRC.
Yeah.
And if you guys are looking for some navigational help, you should definitely check that out, because there's somebody there that'll help you navigate which different resources might suit your business or business opportunity best.
Yeah, that's a great point. And those of us who are helping entrepreneurs in the service provision, we really try to make sure that we're knowledgeable about all the resources. So just reaching out to Rob at Concierge or whoever, we'll try to direct you as well. Okay, great. So how do you start a business if you have no money, student debt, and no access to other privileged funds? Actually, I have an answer for that. So that's what my organization does. Maybe I'm going to answer that first. I'm totally hogging the mic. But my organization, Futurepreneur Canada, was founded by CEOs of the big banks about 20 years ago, and funded primarily now by Industry Canada to fill that gap for students coming out of school who don't have any assets or security to put against a loan, who want to start a business. And so we provide these micro loans up to $45,000, work with other partners as needed, and then match with a mentor. So we are sort of designed by the federal government and the big banks to fill that need. So I'll just put that out there. That's one resource. And I'll let you guys answer that question. So how do you get started? And two of you have nonprofits, but I'd love to hear, how do you go for it?
That's a consistent struggle we have. And it's one of the biggest debates that we have in terms of, we're not for profit, and we're getting 10% of the total revenues from the bar spend on third Thursdays. So you start doing the math and, roughly, okay, people are having quite a few drinks. You might be getting, at the end of that, you might get $100 max. And of that $100, we chose to go with an 8% that we were going to take off to help fund different kind of operational expenses. And the reason we chose 8% was, for us, we looked at the top 10 not-for-profits in Canada at the time, and I think that the lowest was 8.1%. So we were like, we'll be 1% better, or 0.1% better. Let's go to 8. But what we realized is that we started selling ourselves short, in that we have a good message that we want to communicate, but so many people place such a significant emphasis on what percent are you taking as a not-for-profit on your overhead. And once you start doing research, you look at the not-for-profit sector and you're like, this really doesn't make sense. If we're ever going to grow the not-for-profit sector, and there's a great TED Talk out there that speaks to this point, but if you're ever going to grow the not-for-profit sector and you're going to grow your message, you need to be able to have those resources to invest in yourself. So that's a consistent struggle that we constantly have debates over. Whether or not we should have that 8% or should we raise it.
Does he get $4 and I get $4? Or?
Yeah. So I think that's kind of, for us, that's our struggle. But at the end of the day, right, the most important thing is, what are we doing in terms of building the brand and helping to push the key message as the not-for-profit. And all of that comes through sweat equity, right? And that's just what you have to do.
Okay. Anything to add?
I sort of have a very different opinion than you,
Perfect.
but
Yeah.
We like
our
controversy.
nonprofit has a 0% administration
Great.
overhead, and that's actually the reason we started our own organization, is that there's a very different spectrum between not-for-profits in Canada and not-for-profits internationally, in that the idea here is, if you say, oh, I have a not-for-profit, everyone says, oh, you're broke, let me buy you a drink, basically. And the idea overseas is, if you say, oh, I have a non-for-profit, people say, oh, where's your Lamborghini? Where's your Lexus? Where's your Land Rover? Because the highest paid salaries in Sierra Leone, hands down, are not-for-profit. They make more than the president of the country, more than the ministers of the country. You see expats who come in every year and they have like a $200,000 salary for something that a Sierra Leonean could do better. So in that sense, that's the reason we have a 0 administration fee, because I feel like in order to get the message of what we're doing across, we need to stay true to who we are, in that when I tell someone $100 of what you're donating goes to send a student to school, I want $100 of it to go to send a student to school.
That's a really good point. I guess I come at it from a very different perspective, because we're not a not-for-profit. We're a for-profit company at Orasense,
And we need those to fund the not-for-profit.
exactly right.
So we'll take a donation.
And what's interesting is, I personally believe that you got to put your money where your mouth is. With Orasense, we bootstrapped this 100% of the way up until this point. And one of the interesting things that we're building up to right now, I'm not putting a plug for this or anything, but just putting it out. But we're launching a Kickstarter campaign actually at the end of the summer, around July, August-ish. We don't have an exact date yet, but that's another interesting that we haven't really quite touched on in terms of financial resources, which is crowdfunding. There's so many benefits for crowdfunding campaigns. It's not just getting the money, but it gives you immense validation. It shows that there's a demand for what you're offering, and it gives you an opportunity to really, put forth in the world what you're all about, put forth your vision, and and it forces you to be creative too. Because we're bootstrapping, it's put us in a situation where we've had to put out very basic, minimum viable products, a terminology that's thrown around a lot in entrepreneurship. And we've had to be very creative in how we propose how we present our very early iterations of the product to customers to gauge demand, to generate demand, and build hype for what we're trying to do. And that's my take on it. Yeah.
Okay, great. So one of the questions, you can see there's a few great comments about your stories. I've never used this before, but one of the questions that I saw was, what are some habits that make you successful? What are some things that you do, whether it's in your day, whether it's in your month, to make sure that you're successful, I think, personally and professionally?
That's a good one.
Anything?
There's a
Do you
lot.
wake up early and journal?
I'll revert to a quote, another quote. It's actually one that I learned not too long ago, and it's do all that you can with all that you have in the time that you have in the place that you are. And so what that means to me is if I can be doing something that maybe doesn't stress me out anymore, but it allows me to grow as an individual, maybe it allows me to grow my knowledge at my place of work, whatever it might be. As an example, I'll walk home tonight from this and I'll listen to an audiobook, guaranteed. I'm really excited about the one. I just finished one on the way to work, and I'm excited about the one I have lined up. And I think that, to me, making the most out of every moment, even if that moment might be doing nothing, is personally very, very important. So that's not really answering your question in terms of habits, but I think that in itself is a habit of mine.
I think that's a great habit. Anyone else want to share anything?
I am a morning person, but that's not what I would equate someone's early success to. But I would say it's definitely, it's actually my greatest strength is my greatest weakness, and it's being stubborn. And so if I set a goal, the expectation is that I'm going to not meet that goal, but surpass that goal, and then set a tougher and more challenging goal. And so although it can be, like I said, my greatest strength, I'm lucky enough to have a supportive girlfriend who will kind of politely remind me that that's also my greatest weakness, and to remind me what's important.
Okay, great. Christina or Kevin?
Yeah, I think for me, one habit that makes me successful in what I do is connecting with other people, because people are really, no matter what your entrepreneurship journey is, people are the essence that brings everything together. So if you can have people in your life who believe in you and believe in what you're doing, or if you can connect with different people who bring different strengths to the table, or who are willing to actually give you criticism on an idea that might not be the best idea, I think that's the most important thing, to keep those relationships and maintain them.
Great.
Yeah, I was actually stole my answer. But just to give my 2 cents about that, it's really all about leveraging social capital, really playing to your network, really taking advantage of the resources that you have, and if you don't have that, build a network. Mm-hmm. One of the core competencies, and you guys can totally agree with me on this, I'm pretty sure, is you guys aren't islands, right? You go out there and you're nothing without the networks that you build. Mm-hmm. Talking to potential customers, your team members, things like that, it helps grow your vision as a company, and that kind of growth, you can't have that without that social capital, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And again, we're really lucky in this community, because if you ask for help, people are most likely going to give it, and the worst thing they're going to do is say no. I can't help you right now, and somebody else can. And so you do have to put that out there. So, and I think sometimes as Canadians, we're so polite. We need to just promote and ask. Now, Angie, just before we wrap up, is there anyone in the audience, there's still more questions on there, but anyone, I just want to make sure if there's anyone in the room that has a question for the panelists? No, yeah, okay, why don't we?
Ask Christina on motivation. So
There's a mic right behind you there, too.
yeah, I want to ask. I want to ask Christina on motivation. Why Sierra Leone, and maybe what was the motivational tipping point that kind of persuaded you to drop your original plans and dedicated your time and effort into Sierra Leone?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, one quote that stuck with me throughout my life is, don't ask yourself what the world needs, but ask yourself what makes you come alive, because what makes you come alive is what the world needs. And I've never felt more alive than when I'm in Sierra Leone. Like the people, the culture, the weather, the landscape, everything about it just makes me feel like I can become a better person and I can contribute to society in a more meaningful way. So I think from the moment I got there in 2008, as soon as I started developing relationships with people, I realized my potential to create change there was so much greater than my potential to create change in Vancouver. Not that it didn't exist in Vancouver, but the things I could do there with a teaching degree would just transform things in so many more ways and would transform people in so many more ways. And I mean, selfishly for me, I love the culture and I love the people, and I feel most alive and most excited when I'm talking about it or when I'm there or when I'm living it. So I think it was sort of realizing that I could meet a need, but at the same time, I could also grow personally from meeting that need.
Great. Thank you. I think we are out of time, but I feel like this conversation could go on longer. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your honesty, and just all that you're doing. You're doing inspiring things, all four of you, so thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Angie to wrap up, and I believe these panelists will be around for the next little bit, so you can continue to extract their ideas. Thank you very much.